Here we go. We're finally going to see a return. And I'm actually going to mix a little bit of overloaded functions in here as well, because I think that by now you guys can handle that. First and foremost, you can see here on lines 7 and 8, I have my function prototypes, but this time you'll notice that I have a return type, an integer return type, and a double return type. So again, do recall that here inside of line 7, what we are saying is that the function called square that returns an integer is going to receive one argument from its calling function. Here we're saying that a double function called square is going to receive a double variable from its calling function. So what am I saying? That one of them returns a value that is an integer, the other one returns a value that is a double, and we declare what kind of return it's going to make here in the prototype. So here inside of main, I've got two variables, one an integer, and you guessed it, one a double. I've got user int and user float, because remember, a double is a floating point number. And here, I'm going to ask the user for an integer. I'm going to ask the user for a decimal, so our double number. Here, this is where we've got our next layer of complexity from what we've been doing with our void functions in the refresher to date. What we are doing is we are passing square a value. Now, C++ knows on line 22, after the first cout, after the first sequence there, C++ knows that I am calling the integer version of this one, the integer version of square, rather than the double version of square, because of the parameters that we're passing along. Because we're saying that here it accepts an argument that is going to be an integer, C++ knows this is the square function I'm going to call. Here, when I pass user float along, C++ is going to look at that argument and say, okay, this is a double. I have two functions that are called square. So the next thing it does is go, what argument is the correct one here? So double, double, or integer, double. Okay, double, double. That's the one we want. The only real difference we have here is finally our functions are returning values, and those values are immediately output here into the output stream. So once the result of number squared is determined, we come back, flow of control comes back here to line 22. We're still here from where our calling function was executed, so that means that number squared is outputted into the output stream. Here, the same goes on the second side. So I'm just going to run this and we'll show you. It's taking longer than I expected. There we go. I'm going to say 2 and a 4.0. So my 2 is my integer, so we're expecting that squared, and 4.0 squared. There we go. So here are their squares, 4, which in fact is the square of 2, and 16.0, which is in fact the square of 4.0. So the return type is specified here in the function definition or the function prototype, and overloading is where we have a function that does the same thing, but it does the same thing based on a different kind of parameter. So in this case, we've got one function that accepts an integer, the other one that accepts a double, and C++ does it automatically to manage for us which of those two functions is properly called.